Welcome to Dream Big Today. My name is Debbie, and this is Monday, January the 29th, 2024, the best January 29th ever. Isn't that right? We're still here and we're still reading the Bible together. Um, Thank you for joining us. We do the 1 year Bible every day at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. And by the time you read a little bit of Psalms, Proverbs, Old Testament, New Testament, you've read through the whole entire Bible through that year. So we just keep doing this over and over because we keep finding new revelations every time we open the Word. And it's just something that will just get you through the day, change your perspective, change your outlook, get you in that kingdom mindset that we should be in. Change your heart, soften your heart. We're going to read about hard hearts and what happens whenever you have a hard heart. And so, if you would put your prayer request and your praise reports in the chat box right now, we'd love to be able to pray with you, for you, and just be able to join you. And I got to get my computer on mute. You'd think I would do that before I ever got started. But I just wanted to make sure that I'm on with everybody. So good morning, Tara, Jan, Cassie, and Donna. Yay. And so I have a praise report to give you all. Now, this last weekend or Friday, my husband was gone on a mission helping his mom out. He has chest pains, as I don't know that. Whenever he left, she lives an hour away. So he left the house with tightness. He stays there, comes back the next morning with tightness and pains. Not a good scenario for him. I mean, he is has a stent, so he's had issues before, and he knew that felt like that. So I took him to the ER on Friday. They ran all of the tests, the echo, the EKG, the blood test, checking for enzymes and any kind of a heart event that might have happened. Didn't see anything, continued on, kept him overnight for observation, and Saturday he was released. And well, what was it? What was it? And I'm trying to figure it out. I really like to solve a problem, although I'm not a doctor, but boy, I've got Google at my fingertips all the time. And as I was starting to Google to see if I could figure out what could possibly be wrong with him, I had this sense, this feeling come over me that God's saying, what are you doing? I've healed him. You can't Google that. You can get in your word and you can see that I heal even tightness in the chest. I am the great I am. I heal everything. And I thought, wow, I'm going to quit trying to figure stuff out like that whenever they say his tests are normal and everything just came out fine. And so, but to back up just a little bit, it's a rainy morning and on our way in, and I'm just praying for a parking spot really close to the emergency room door because those are all. It's always full. I've never seen any good place to park at a hospital, especially when you're in a hurry. And so I'm praying and praying and praying, and we prayed on the way. And whenever we get there, there's no parking place. You know, God, I just really thought that would be easy to do. But you know what happened? I looked down the sidewalk, and here comes, on this rainy morning, here comes a man walking down the sidewalk all by himself, straight to us. It's my pastor. And when we requested prayer, they had let him know, here he come. And he had me get out of my car, and he parked my car while I took Steve in there. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know what? I didn't know how big to pray. I would have never prayed for my own personal valet to come park my car. I was just simply praying for what I understood, a parking spot. And here is what happened. He brought somebody, and then that somebody, our pastor, came in and prayed with us. Another really good friend on our prayer team is a nurse supervisor there. She came down and prayed with us. And so with that, why would I even think that I need to Google anything when I have all of the power in me, around me, for me, with me. And we're going to read about him today. So, my husband's doing fine today. Isn't that awesome? It's amazing. It's amazing. And so, just know, greater is the one that's in me than he that's in the world. He is absolutely on, he knows everything. He knows everything. So I was going to read my devotion today, but then I decided that was going to be so much better than anything else. And it was it was great. And then you know what? We got out of the hospital Saturday night at 7 o'clock. We got home, took our showers, went to bed, and we went to church yesterday morning. And what a great thing to walk into the church. Everybody's been praying for you, and here you are. It's like a miracle in shoes. And so let's jump into the word today, because we've got to know how to pray. We've got to make sure that we don't ever let our heart get hardened. And we're going to see what happens with Pharaoh. And I wish you could see my desks. I've got 5 Bibles on top of my desk right now, trying to make it easy for me to talk with you this morning. And so we're gonna get right into this. Exodus 8 through 9 is where we're going to be today. Then after everything that we've read about so far, that Lori's talked about yesterday and the day before and the day before, the Lord said to Moses, go. Have you ever had him tell you go? I mean, are you like me? I kind of need to Google it, figure it out, get my map, get all of the scenarios all figured out. Maybe I just need to stop Googling. In fact, yesterday I'm on the prayer team, and yesterday at church, here comes a lady to me, and this will be a prayer request for you all to pray for this mom. She's my age. And she came and she told me how sick her son was. She'd already lost a child, and she said, I don't want to lose another one. And she was talking about, so tearful, of how afraid she was that what he's going through right now, he might not make it. And you know what? She came to me, and it was perfect, because I know what that scary feeling is like. And so, you know what? God takes us, he's just wanting to walk with us one step at a time, one day at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow. Psalms 118:24, and this is what I gave to her. This is the day he's created. He made this day for us, and so you enjoy your son today. Don't even think about tomorrow. That's how we roll in our word. We focus on what the word is today, and it tells us not to think about tomorrow. So let's do that today. So Pharaoh, let's get back to Pharaoh again. Man, I still have more stories, but that'll come later. Go. This is what the Lord says. Let my people go. Why? Why does he want them to let them go? It's so they can worship me. Now, it's easy for us to jump in our car and go. What are you letting anything keep you from going to church and worship? Are you letting anything? This is back in this day, and God is getting ready to make big statements right and left. Plagues after plagues after plagues on Pharaoh. All he had to do is let my people go. If let my people go. But if you don't, here's what's going to happen. If you refuse to let them go, I will send a plague of frogs across your entire land. What a nasty thing to have to deal with. Now, the first and second plagues are about water. Third and fourth plagues we're going to read about is about the earth. The fifth about the air, and the last is about man. And this came from a commentary from a man by the last name of Trapp. But God threatened a plague of frogs for a specific reason. They were considered sacred and could not be killed. So now, then we also know that the Egyptian frog goddess Heket was associated with childbirth and connected to the Nile. And that popped again to me. But let me go on with my little note. The Nile was worshipped as a god. And so this first plague against the false god of the Nile. So is this not just crazy? Here's God is telling this to Moses. Moses is the one that Pharaoh's daughter found him in a basket in the Nile, probably with frogs jumping all around him. She probably thought, I found the prince of the frogs, the prince of the Nile. He's telling the guy that was picked up out of the Nile to go tell Pharaoh this, and everything about that is what they had been worshiping. I just thought that was amazing. So Moses is being commanded, and it's a tough one because he knows how all of these people act. Of course, he's got Aaron at his side. And I'm not saying it's tough for Moses. I'm thinking, wow, that would be a big one for me. Moses needs confidence. This is how we get confidence: as we read the Word and we study and we meditate and we pray and we get in our small groups, our core groups, and we talk to God about and our people about what they got out of the Word, just like we're doing today. Moses had to trust God in his mission, and none of this is going to be easy because he's telling him to go. Now, does Moses know Pharaoh is going to refuse and say yes and say no, be just wishy-washy all through this? I don't think so. I think he thinks that, oh, this is going to be one hard thing to follow, and I'm going to go do it and get it over with, without knowing that he's going to be doing it over and over and over. So that if you do, if you let my people go, see, it's specific. It is about worship. It's not about just being free of slavery. It's not that. It's about for them to worship. But with following God, you break those chains. So this all manifests the uniqueness of God with an unnatural occurrence. So look what it says. I will send a plague of frogs across the land. The Nile River will swarm with frogs. They will come up out of the river into your palace, into your bedroom, onto your bed. They will enter your house of your officials, your people. They will even jump into your ovens, your kneading bowls. Frogs will jump on you, your people, and all of your officials. And then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, raise the staff in your hand over all of the rivers, canals, ponds of Egypt, and bring up the frogs over the land. And so Aaron raised his hand over the waters. But see, we still have that staff. This was the staff of Moses, and it's become the staff of God with the miracles all attached to it. And so Aaron raised his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the whole land. Okay, so how would frogs cover the whole land? This is telling us that this was still an order. They didn't just pile up and there's empty places and frogs are in heaps of frogs. They covered the whole land. They covered and generally these people, the royalty, they had the big palace type homes, mansion, whatever you want to call in that age, that era. But their people, that their servants lived below, they lived like in the next story up or the next story up. And so the frogs all marched up into their living quarters, their kitchens, their everything that they had they came up there. How nasty is that? You couldn't walk around anywhere without stepping on one. And let me tell you, I stepped on one time and I thought I was going to throw up. But this would be bizarre. So then Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron and begged, plead with the Lord. Oh, do you get that? The Lord, he says the Lord, and that's in bold capital letters. That's the Lord of the Hebrews. That he's referring to the sovereign God. So he knows who he is. Take the frogs away from me and my people. I will let them go so they can offer sacrifices to the Lord. See, he understands their worship. Isn't that amazing? And Moses, he's thinking, man, I got this done. We're good. Tell me, when you want me to pray for you, your officials, and your people, then after that, your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River. And Pharaoh doesn't say, oh, do it today. See, he's not sure that those frogs might not just go away on their own. Maybe he's going to get a team of frog cleaners to go sweep them out, and he won't have to mess or make any more promises, won't have to mess with Moses or God. But he's stubborn. So see, we see the stubbornness starting in this chapter. Do it tomorrow. All right, Moses said, it will be as you've said. Then you will know, then you, Pharaoh, you will know that there is no one like the Lord our God. So this implies, if you see, then you will know, and you will obey the all-powerful God. Is that it? Is that what he's going to do? So Moses, Aaron, left Pharaoh's palace. Moses cried out to the Lord about the frogs that had inflicted Pharaoh. And the Lord did just what Moses predicted. The frogs in the houses, courtyards, fields, and everything died. Egyptians piled them up in heaps, and a terrible stench filled the land. But when Pharaoh saw that relief had come, look at this, he became stubborn. He refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had predicted. Now, let's think about our hard hearts. Proverbs 28:14 tells us, blessed is the one who is always cautious, but whoever hardens his heart will fall into evil. If Pharaoh would have submitted right then, it would have all been over. How easy would that have been done? The frogs were all over Egypt. He could have, when he first talked to Moses, he could have said, okay, and just went with it. But he didn't, and it continues on to the next plague and the next plague and the next plague. And so then they get into the third plague of the gnats or the lice, whichever you want to talk about. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, raise your staff. Here goes the staff again. But do you notice that there's not a warning this time? This plague came without a warning. And so here's the dust. So see, he used something else that was natural to become supernatural, to become bugs and infest the whole entire land. So the Egyptian priesthood was very careful about hygiene and ritual cleansings. And an infestation of lice made them unable to worship their gods. And you see, it also infested their animals, so that made them to have to stop doing their livestock sacrifice rituals and all of that kind of stuff because they were not clean. The magicians tried to do all of this stuff and they failed. And then they told Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. And then look what it says again, 19. Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. We go on to the warning of flies, and then it talks about that. Let me get my other Bible, since I have all of these. Now they had a ton of gods in their world. They thought that they had the God for everything. How hard would that be? I mean, to think about, oh man, this is going on, so I'm going to have to, which God do I pray to? Which God do I pray to? Every time something traumatic happened in your life. But in this case, I mean, he already has all of that figured out. But here's the Bible I wanted for that. So this first cycle was the frogs and the dust to gnats. And the frogs had a warning, the dust didn't. The flies had a warning. And then let's see, we get on into hail and locust and all, and the locust will come tomorrow. But in each of these cases, I went through and I underlined either Pharaoh again became stubborn, he remained hardened until we get to verse, let's see, into the sixth plague. And so that starts in verse 8. And so here is the boils that break out over everybody. And so it's after Moses, or Pharaoh watched Moses threw the suit into the air, another occurrence that became supernatural, and boils broke out on the people and animals alike. All of this could have stopped right in the beginning with the frogs. But this time, this is the first occurrence where it says that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now remember Proverbs 28:14? Whoever hardens his heart will fall into evil. When we keep that mindset of not changing, this is, I mean, all we have to do is repent and ask Jesus into our heart to soften our heart, to let us see other people like he sees it, because really it's the other people that we focus on so much that's going to cause us to sin. That frog didn't cause him to sin. It's his attitude and everything that he's wanting to, the pride that he's wanting to pull into it. The Lord hardens his heart. And one of the little notes that I wrote was, the moral to that would be, the Lord hardens those who hardens themselves. You hear that if you don't change, at all, everything will become so normal to you that that it's no big deal. If we look at Romans 1, it talks about God's wrath against mankind. And it says that, oh man, I didn't want to, I'm not going to read the whole entire thing, but it really could be. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Therefore, God gave them over in their sinful desires, impurity, and all of that kind of stuff. They exchanged truth for a lie, and they worshiped and created things rather than the Creator. And that's in Romans 1. And you can read it between verses 18 through 32. That's a good one. And then Romans 9:14 says, what then shall we say? Is God unjust? I mean, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. You could say, well, Would a loving God harden somebody's heart? Are we predestined in that way that you're selected to have a hard heart and you'll go to hell? In Romans 9:14 says, "What then shall we say? Is God unjust? Not at all. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion." We'll read that in Exodus 33. Pharaoh had a choice in the beginning, but he still wanted it his way. Yes, Nancy says, after plague started, they were stopped with prayer. In verse 29, lift up your hands. I spared you for a purpose. In verse 16, I highlighted that, Nancy. I have spared you for a purpose, to show you my power and to spread fame throughout the earth. So there's nothing so, he can use everything to show his glory, his power. And when we see something, like when we see somebody that's having chest pains and tightness that should be in a full-blown heart attack, and they can't find anything wrong with him, then we've got to accept that's a miracle. God stepped in and he did this. Stop Googling it. I'm not Googling nothing. God's the healer. He can do anything through him. And man, if Elizabeth is watching, she's going to see that I didn't even get into Matthew. I'm going to be on at noon today, and I'm going to have to jump into Matthew at noon. I just couldn't get out of this, because we think about Pharaoh, and all he had to do is acknowledge God. He already knew who he was, because he did say his name, plead with the God, or plead with the Lord. He already knew about him. He knew that the Israelites offered sacrifices to the Lord. He knew about all of that stuff. We can have just a little bit of knowledge and feel like that we know all about something, but when you start practicing it, when you start worshiping God, when you start reading and praying and letting that all soak into your mind, your heart, your soul, then it changes. And you want to be submissive. You don't want to have that hard heart. You want it to be softened with the love of Jesus. And so you can see people in the way God sees people. Let me get back over to my Bible here, because I see I'm just about done. So we've seen the plague of blood yesterday, the frogs, the gnats, the flies, the livestock, the boils, and the hail. Oh, yeah, we'll hit that one really quick too. And it depends what version that you're watching or you're reading. In chapter 9:13, he's talking about the hailstorm. And so the funny thing is now in the New Living Translation, it says, so tomorrow at this time I'll send a hailstorm more devastating than any in all history. And another word, down to verse 23, the Lord sent, and this is after Moses lifted his staff, the Lord sent thunder, hail, and lightning flash towards the earth. Now, some versions is going to talk about fiery lightning. So that would be fire and rain, and another unnatural thing that happened because water puts out fire. This is all flowing down at the same time. And the only place that was without hail was the region of Goshen, where the Israel people lived. And so, down to the end of that, in verse 34, Pharaoh again became stubborn. Because his heart was hard, Pharaoh refused to let the people leave, just as the Lord had predicted through Moses. And so Moses had a big job. I'm thinking I would like to have had my brother Aaron with me whenever I had all of this stuff going on. He You just need somebody to help you hold up your staff sometimes. And so today, remember, there's something at your hand that you can hold up, and you can use that giftings that God's given you to part those Red Seas and get through the Red Sea, and just live for Him and pray for those who might have hardened hearts today. And so I love you. You have a great morning, and I will see you again at noon. And we'll come back at noon and we'll talk about